Jake, who lives in an old farmhouse in the foothills of the desolate mountains of Montana, had to stay at home alone for one night because his family was going to the city for the weekend. The silence of the house and the quiet mountain scenery around it have always had a charm for Jake. But tonight, the silence and loneliness would turn into a horror story for him that he would not forget. The first night, Jake tried to sleep in the silence in his bedroom, but he began to hear a strange sound. It sounded like it was coming from inside the house. Jake, strolling slowly through the house, tried to discover what the sound was, but each time, he couldn't find the source of the sound. The second night, Jake tried to sleep in the bedroom again, but this time he saw in his dream that the shadows inside the house were coming to life. Shadows were dancing on the walls and filling the room. Jake checked his room as soon as he woke up, but again there was no shadow. On the third night, Jake decided to solve the secret in the house. He explored every corner of the house, studied old family albums, and began to learn the history of the surrounding mountains. History showed that this area was a sacred place for the locals. On the fourth night, Jake tracked down an old indigenous tribe. The tribe worshipped many supernatural beings who lived in these mountains. Jake began to believe that these beings were still roaming this land. On the fifth night, Jake understood the secret of the house and the will of the native beings. The beings wanted to warn that this land is still sacred, and what broke this silence. Jake received their message and committed to respectfully protect this land. When Jake's family returned, the house now had silence and a historical meaning. After this experience, Jake began to appreciate the silence of the house and the beauty of the surrounding mountains even more. This was going to be an unforgettable story for Jake. Far from the gloomy forest of North Carolina, in an ordinary neighborhood, Lily, a young woman, had to stay only at home for one night because her family was going to the city for a weekend vacation. The quiet and peace of the house had always been like a dream to Lily, but tonight he did not know that his dreams would turn into nightmares. The first night, Lily tried to sleep in the silence in her bedroom. However, in her dream, she saw that she was trapped in a room filled with a huge mirror. The mirror surface was strangely covered with strange symbols that were reflected in the darkness. He himself, standing in front of the mirror, was looking at her mysteriously. On the second night, as soon as Lily woke up, she felt the silence of the house even more deeply. He felt that something strange was going on in the silence that was circulating around the room. The silence, as if it was seeping into the house. Lily, while walking around the house during the night, noticed a strange smell in the kitchen. On the third night, Lily decided to solve the mystery in the house. He explored every corner of the house, studied old family albums, and began to learn about the history of the neighborhood. History showed that this neighborhood was full of mysterious events. On the fourth night, Lily discovered the story of the house in her dream. In his dream, he saw that the house had once been the city's hospital, but terrible experiments were being carried out in the hospital, and the screams of patients still echoed in the rooms. On the fifth night, it was time for Lily to run away from home. He understood that the darkness inside the house was combined with painful memories of the past. Lily discovered that it was the sign of a spirit trapped inside the house. He bravely took action to solve the terrible secret inside the house and set the soul free. At the end of the story, when Lily's family returned, the house had now become a place where silence and peace prevailed. But the ghosts of the past still roamed there, and Lily had learned to make peace with the silence of the house after this experience. Sarah, who lives in an old lakeside cabin in the middle of Florida's desolate Everglades swamps, had to stay at home alone for one night because her family was going to the city for the weekend. The silence of the house and the view of the swamp had always been a source of peace for Sarah. But tonight, this silence would turn into a nightmare for him. The first night, Sarah tried to sleep in the silence in her bedroom, but he saw something strange in his dream. Far from the house, he heard a distant echo, as well as shadows wandering in the swamp. The echoes made him feel the silence inside the house even deeper. On the second night, Sarah began to see the past of the house in her dream. the sad stories of the previous owners of the house, he was trying to communicate with her. The echoes in the house carried traces of the past. On the third night, Sarah decided to solve the secret in the house. He explored every corner of the house, studied old family albums, and began to learn about the legends of the swamp people. Legends were talking about supernatural beings who lived in the swamp. On the fourth night, Sarah went on a journey deep into the swamp. There, he followed the tracks of mysterious beings and reached the places where the swamp people lived. He began to believe that these beings were still on this land. On the fifth night, Sarah felt that she was getting closer to solving the mystery of the swamp people. He learned that these beings are part of the swamp people's past, and they are trying to help them. Sarah decided to deal with these beings and understood their message. When Sarah's family returned, silence and peace reigned in the house. Sarah learned to make more peace with the swamp silence and mystery after this experience. This story had an unforgettable meaning for Sarah and helped her discover the true beauty of silence in the house.